In order to get the startup off the ground, to move and adapt fast to new challenges, it is crucial to understand who is owning what, how are decisions being made, and who calls the shots for which topics. Hence, the question about who has what role and is responsible for what is key. At Yokoy, we had the luxury of being 5 co-founders with very complementary skills and expertise. So from the very beginning, each of us covered a specific department, from tech to finance to sales to marketing, and was driving that. It helped us a lot to not stand on each other's toes and be very quick in the decision making. Not every founder team is as big and as complementary, so no worries if this isn't the case for you. The key is to discuss early on who is responsible for what, to make sure nothing important falls through the cracks because everyone thinks the other one is doing it.
One thing I would say is don't overthink the roles. They will change anyway as you grow. They will have to. The most important thing is to have a dedicated and committed founding team. Of course, you will need all areas covered. For each area, you will need someone who is motivated to take responsibility and feels committed to it. Of course, it helps if someone has a degree in a field, but I wouldn't make it a requirement. Interest and motivation go a long way. In the case of Scandit, we are 3 technical co-founders, everyone with a PhD in computer science from ETH Zurich. So not exactly a diverse founding team, but that can work too. Eventually, you will anyway want to hire people with significant experience from the main functions of the company. When you look at your personal journey as a founder, you will initially need to be a generalist. You will need to be willing and able to switch between the different fields and help out wherever needed. Then, as your team grows, you hire specialists, and your own role becomes more focused on a specific field. The important thing is that the founding team has a conversation about the different functional areas of the company and makes sure that they are all covered by someone who is motivated and has the right personality. When talking about roles and responsibilities, I would also recommend that you discuss with your co-founders the need to eventually give up control. Building a startup means building a strong team, a strong organization. And for this, you need people who are very good in their fields. Ideally, they are better than you. This is the old saying from Steve Jobs that we all have heard many times. A players hire A players and B players hire C players. You want to make sure that you have A players on the team. So the right mindset for a founder should be that they want to always hire people who are better than themselves. For me personally, it has always been a guiding principle that I have tried to make myself redundant in the organization. Over all these years, I have done it several times. I would focus on a certain area and try to strengthen it as much as I possibly could by putting the right, strong leaders in place, and then I could move on. By applying this principle, you strengthen your organization and make sure you free up bandwidth for other important projects. This principle of making yourself redundant is something we discussed early on with my co-founders, and it has served me very well. And of course, when you hear making yourself redundant, it can also be scary. In my experience, there is always so much to do that you really only ever become redundant in a certain area. As soon as you start looking into another area, you will immediately realize that you are still badly needed. The important thing is to remain flexible and always look at roles and responsibilities through the lens of what's best for the success of the company. When you find yourself in a situation where you lack certain expertise in the founding team, you can of course hire someone, but that will often cost a lot of money that you don't have. You might also outsource a certain task to another company. For example, developing an app. But again, this is often way too expensive. And depending on your specific product, it may not be a wise thing to do because you consider the app or something else a strategic element of your offering. Often, you will need to iterate quickly on your product ideas, and then it may be easier to have these capabilities in-house. Sometimes it can also be an option to find a person who will advise you in a certain area for some time. This could be someone who has deep knowledge in a certain industry, for example. If you need an advisor, they typically play a role for a limited time only. So I would ideally not want to compensate them with equity. I would generally be hesitant to use equity for people who are not in an operative role.
In a fast-growing startup, having a clear decision-making framework is helpful. Decide upfront whether you rely on consensus or assign decision makers for specific areas. This clarity helps prevent bottlenecks, minimizes conflicts, and ensures quick, decisive actions. Regular check-ins and transparent communication are essential here. Make sure everyone understands the process and feels that their input is valued. This not only speeds up decision making, but also keeps the team aligned with the startup goals. Ultimately, it's all about balancing speed and thoroughness. Move fast when you can, but take your time when it really matters. This approach keeps momentum while ensuring you don't compromise on quality or direction. In a fast-growing startup, conflicts and disputes are inevitable, but how you handle them can make all the difference. Here is one way to approach it. Prioritize open communication. Address conflicts as soon as they arise. Establish clear procedures for resolution, whether through direct conversations, mediation, or involving a neutral third party. Cultivate a growth-oriented culture. What does this mean? Establish a culture where feedback is seen as an opportunity for growth. Regular check-ins and transparent discussions about what works and what doesn't, and what can be learned from it, help prevent small issues from becoming big problems. Build trust and clarity. Ensure everyone knows their roles, responsibilities, and the stress triggers of the others. This understanding reduces friction and aligns efforts, especially under pressure. Focus on resilience. View conflict resolution as key to building a strong team. Proactively engage in tough conversations to strengthen team dynamics and prepare for future challenges. Invest in founders' relationships. Make consciously time for your co-founders' relationship, especially as you get busier. This proactive investment will be crucial when challenges arise. Handling conflicts effectively can be the difference between a startup that thrives and one that falls apart. Managing intellectual property, short IP, is critical for safeguarding your startup's assets. You, as co-founders, need to establish clear protocols for handling both IP brought in by team members and newly developed IP within the company. Discuss ownership agreements, confidentiality measures, and protection strategies to ensure the IP stays with the company, not tied to any one co-founder who might leave eventually. While it's crucial to talk about this early on, it's one of these times where you should bring in an IP lawyer. This ensures you're all on the same page and your assets are really protected.